What's happening, Fourth and Inches podcast listeners? You got Stevie P. We are going to go through the waiver wire today. So, like I said last week, if you did not get Donta Foreman, that is something you are going to want to do. So make sure you do that and get that going, because within the next week or two, he will be activated. And I believe when he is activated, they are definitely going to give him some work. So if that's the case, I definitely want him on my fantasy team, because I think the other running backs there are garbage, and I think he's a very good running back. So make sure you get Donta Foreman, like we said last week. If you did not get him now, or you're not going to get him. You know, last week you could have got him for a $0 bid, and this week you're going to have to pay for him. So make sure you run and grab him off the waiver wire. Super important. You guys do that. Last year, if you guys remember, he looked like a pretty good running back. And at this point of the season, could be a league winner if you have, a starting running back for a high-powered offense like the Houston Texans. And they need a running game, because I'll tell you what, their quarterback is getting crushed in the pocket. It's one of those things where the offensive line is just not playing well. But, if you get a little run game started, that could change everything for Deshaun Watson, and I believe Bill O'Brien is smart enough to realize that. So, definitely a guy you want to get. The other running backs, I couldn't actually believe this when I saw it, but Marlon Mack is 25.6% owned. This is Yahoo numbers, but he's 25.6% owned, which is pretty unbelievable. Not a guy that I thought would be that low owned. I remember in the preseason I was saying that I loved him. After watching his game film this week, I love him even more. A guy who I would say on 60% of his runs is going to go for 2 yards, but when he pops one, he could pop one for a long touchdown. He's an explosive runner. He's patient. He gets through the holes. He follows blockers, which I love to see from a running back. I love to see running backs that follow their blockers. I hate to see guys that just try to make their own holes. You know what I mean? A little bit, I don't want to say Le'Veon Bell-esque, because he's not one of those, really super patient where he's going to hold your backside and wait for you to make the hole. But definitely a guy that I saw stutter stepping, looking at a hole and going through it when he saw it. And I'd love to see that from running backs. So Marlon Mack, definitely somebody you're going to want to put at least 40% of your budget on to get him. At this point in the season, Donta Foreman, Marlon Mack are two guys that you almost have to have if, especially if you're hurting at the running back position. If you're hurting at the running back position, I'm spending 50% on these guys, 60, 70% on these guys. It just depends how bad you're hurting. Bye weeks are coming up. If you're a 1-5 team or a 2-4 team, and you really need to start getting some wins, these running backs can make all the difference. And if you're a 5-1 team, 4-2 team, this could lead you to a championship picking up these guys. So definitely make sure you get these guys. Peyton Barber is 43.1% owned. I know we said pick up Rojo, but that was a speculative ad. I don't know why Peyton Barber was dropped in so many leagues, with Rojo. If we've seen anything from Rojo, he's just been terrible. He's been really bad. So for a guy that has not played well at all, I don't understand why he was so highly owned when, Peyton Barber, they never said that Peyton Barber was not going to be the guy. You know what I mean? So pick him up if you need running back. I don't like the running attack over in Tampa. I told you guys this in the beginning of the season that I was staying clear of every Tampa Bay running back. But I actually made a trade last week that for me worked out great. I got Doug Baldwin for who was it? It was Doug Baldwin. I threw in Amari Cooper and Rojo to a team that was super, super running back needy. And I was just trying to unload Rojo as fast as I could. I picked him up with the full intent of trying to trade him. So, I got him off. Thank God I got him off when I did, because, if you watch that game, he's just bad. He's just not a good running back. You know what I mean? Could he develop into something? Yeah, I think when the game slows down for him, he could be better. But the game is not slowing down for him right now. He just looks lost. He's impatient. Even with that drop pass, if you guys remember 2 weeks ago, they threw a ball that hit him right in the hands, and he just looked like he was so excited that the ball was coming to him. He almost looked like a jack in the box, like, oh my God, like, just spring up, and it just, ball clanged off his fingertips, and, he just looked like an idiot, basically. So, definitely, Peyton Barber, if he's available in your leagues, go get him. If you're desperate, I'm not spending 50% of my budget on him, but, I could definitely see spending 25, 30% if I need a running back and the other guys are not available. Ito Smith, it just seems to me like Devontae Freeman is just going to be out all season. The injuries just keep piling up, and it's just, to me, if you're in a dynasty league or a keeper league, he's a must grab. He's a must. You have to have this guy because, for all we know, Coleman leaves next year. Freeman is injury prone next year, and Ito Smith gets the full workload. And, that's definitely something to think about. So, grab Ito Smith if you can. I'm spending 15, 20%. In a dynasty league, I'm spending 30 to 40%, just because I believe he could be, good next year. Frank Gore. Frank Gore is only 11.3% owned, and if he's that available in your league, it's kind of crazy because he's basically seen 15 touches the past 3 weeks at least. That's a full-time running back. In the NFL today, guys aren't getting 30 carries, 25 carries like they used to in LaDainian Tomlinson time, where you had Priest Holmes and you had Larry Johnson and you had all these guys that were getting a freaking crazy amount of touches. That's just not the NFL now. You know what I mean? So if you get a running back that's getting 15 carries, that's a starting running back for a team. And Kenyon Drake has showed nothing to make you think that he's not going to be, he's going to take that job away from Frank Gore, especially fumbling on the 1 yard line this week. It was just a bonehead play. Ball security is like the most important thing when it comes to being on the goal line. And he just held that damn thing like a loaf of bread. And it was just like, come on, man. Like, you got to tuck it. 2 hands if you have to. You do not fumble on the goal line. You know what I mean? He would look distraught after it. They went back to him in that game. But I think that was mainly because, freaking Frank Gore had so much work that he was just beat up. Frank Gore took some big hits in that game. But if Frank Gore stays healthy, which he seems to always do, he's going to be the main running back in that game. And as long as they can keep games tight, he's going to get 15, 18 carries a game. That's a guy that I want on my bye weeks. You got bye weeks coming up, guys. So definitely make sure you get Frank Gore if he's available in your league. I'm not spending $1 million on him because he's Frank Gore and he's old. You know what I mean? But he had a 100-yard game, and he's going to see the touches. He's definitely going to get the majority of the work. And, I want that guy on my team. Jalen Richard, the game script for the Raiders has just been, they're bad. They get blown out, or they're super high-scoring games, or, whatever it is. I don't know what it is about this Raider offense. I have a feeling they're going to start selling off pieces real soon. Just, I think if Amari Cooper doesn't get the concussion this week, he might not be there, this week. They might aggressively try to sell him, stockpile some draft picks. Obviously they're not getting rid of David Carr, but, maybe, there's other players on that team that, they might just say, you know what, this season's going to be over, and might just start selling on some guys to try to, get some draft stock for next year. So, definitely I would be, with Jalen Richard, I would definitely pick him up. I don't know how much money I'm spending on him, but if game script for them is they're losing by a lot, guess what? They're going to throw the ball to Jalen Richard. They've been doing it all year. So if you need a running back, 5-10%, I don't think a lot of people are going to be going for him this week. So just get it, try to get him if you can, I guess, for the inevitable blowouts that the Raiders are going to be in. So for the wide receiver position, Chester Rogers, Taylor Gabriel, Christian Kirk, Chris Godwin, which is just unbelievable. Albert Wilson and Josh Reynolds are all available. Chester Rogers is 11.7% owned. Taylor Gabriel is 31.7% owned. Christian Kirk is 14% owned. Chris Godwin is 39.3% owned, which is just stupid. Albert Wilson is 6.1% owned, and Josh Reynolds is 0.4% owned. Josh Reynolds, if Cooper Kupp is going to be out for a couple weeks, could be a guy that, plays for a couple of weeks. We haven't got the full extent of what's going on with Cooper Kupp, but it sounds like he might be out for a couple of weeks, 2, 3, 4 weeks. So they were really high on Josh Reynolds. They were talking about, if they didn't trade for Cooks, Brandon Cooks, I'm pretty sure he would have been the starting outside receiver. The X receiver with Robert Woods, playing the Y like he did last year, and Cooper Kupp playing the slot. So, I think Josh Reynolds could be something. If you need wide receiver and you want to take a chance, you need upside. Josh Reynolds is an upside guy. The main guy you have to get off this list, if he's available in your league, is Chris Godwin. Jameis Winston just has eyes for Chris Godwin. If you watch the game tape, he looks for him a lot. He should have had 2 touchdowns yesterday, not 1. If you watch that game over again, guys, the interception that was thrown to Chris Godwin could have caught that ball. He could have gone and gotten that ball. And it was just, it is what it is. It was taken away. He basically... I think that's more not on Jameis. I think that was more on Chris Godwin. But he looks for him in the red zone a lot. Just a guy who's going to be heavily targeted because Jameis loves him. So, definitely of this list, the guy you have to get, period. Got to get this guy. Chester Rogers, he's just seen a ridiculous amount of targets. He's seen 11, 10. He's just getting super targeted. He's not a special player, not somebody that I'm super high on, but Andrew Luck is on pace to break the passing record, the throwing record, basically how many passes he has in a game per game. He's throwing well over 50 a game. I don't see that changing. It could change a little bit with Marlon Mack if they get that run game going, but he's going to throw the ball, regardless to what the situation is. Marlon Mack is not going to change that offense enough to make him throw less than, I would say, 45 passes. And if Andrew Luck's throwing 45 passes, you can almost lock in Chester Rogers for 10 a week. 10 targets a week is a guy that I want on my team. So he's not the greatest talent, but if you need wide receiver, Chester Rogers is awesome. Taylor Gabriel, awesome with targets. Taylor Gabriel has just looked really good the past 2 games. I know they had the bye week, but, 2 touchdowns on over 100 yards in, the week before they went on the bye week, and then they went on the bye week, and then this week he 100 yards. He looks good. And, Mitch Trubisky is flinging that thing to him. So, if you need wide receiver, why not? Definitely go get this guy. On any of these receivers, other than Chris Godwin, when I'm spending 40 to 50% on, because I think he's that good. But the rest of these guys, I'm not spending any more than 15, 20%, because wide receiver is just a crapshoot this year. There's about 40, number 3 wide receivers in the NFL, and I think all these guys are number 3 wide receivers. Chris Godwin is the exception. I think he could be a number 2 wide receiver end of season, finish in the top 24, definitely. So, yeah, definitely you want to, get Godwin. Albert Wilson, if he doesn't have those 2 big plays, he really didn't do shit yesterday, if I'm being honest. He really didn't do anything. So if you watch the game tape, he had those 2 really big runs. Those are 2 of his catches. Both of them went for touchdowns, over 60-yard touchdowns. So he finished with 155 and 2. So that means the other 4 catches he had was like 30 yards. Don't get me wrong, that's not bad. That's in a PPR, that's 7 points. But those 2 big runs were basically all of his yardage. And his 2 touchdowns. So, if you need the upside in a, let's say a 14, 16 team league, I would definitely, spend some money on him. But in a 10 or 12 team league, I just don't see adding him. I don't see that production staying pat. I don't see that staying where it is. I think it was just kind of a little bit fluky. And, it is what it is. Not a guy that I'm going to spend a whole lot of money on. Now, if he does it again, then maybe it is something. But, I would have to see him do it again for me to spend, any kind of money on him, really. You guys might feel differently, but that's the way I feel. Like I said, Josh Reynolds, we already talked about him. So the quarterbacks, Mitch Trubisky and Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's next 4 games are amazing. Plays Tampa Bay, he plays Kansas City, he plays Pittsburgh. I want to say he plays another top or bottom, pass defense. Can't remember who it is off the top of my head right this second, but he's got an amazing set of matchups coming up, and he could work out for you if you need a quarterback. Mitch Trubisky has looked good in the past 2 games. I think he could be a spot starter for you for your bye week, depending on what the matchup is. So I would look at the matchup for your bye week for your main quarterback before you pick up Mitch Trubisky. If he's playing, let's say, I don't know who the hell, Jacksonville. Obviously, you're not going to want to pick him up for that week, and Jacksonville actually has been getting burnt. They look terrible this week, but regardless, definitely a guy. If he has a good matchup on your bye week, I would pick him up. Baker Mayfield the next 4 weeks has good bye week matchups. So if you guys are on bye week, Baker Mayfield could really help you the next 4 weeks if your quarterback's on a bye in the next 4 weeks. O.J. Howard and C.J. Uzomah are the tight ends that I want to talk about. O.J. Howard's only 34% owned. I think he was dropped a lot. Because he was not that low owned prior to his injury. But he's back. Jameis loves him. You could see Jameis loves throwing to the tight end, period. Both of his tight ends had touchdowns this week. But OJ just looked better. OJ just looks like the real deal. He looks like a solid tight end from here on out. They already had their bye week. If he stays healthy, you're starting him every single week. So definitely go pick up, OJ Howard if he's available in your league. And C.J. Uzomah played 92% of the snaps this week, guys. 92%. That is a huge percentage of snaps. He's seeing the targets. He's playing good football. So if you need a tight end, go pick him up. That is the waiver wire today for this week, guys. We will be back either Wednesday night or Thursday night. If we do a Thursday night podcast, it will be live at 6 p.m., but I will post it and let you guys know. So live at 6 p.m. on Thursday. If not, it'll be tomorrow, and we'll probably do it live around the same time, 6 p.m. So watch out for both of those days. One of those days at 6 p.m. is going to be a live podcast that you guys can listen to, and hit that subscribe button, guys. We are doing great on the Fantasy Life app. If you looked at a lot of our questions, a lot of our answers paid off for people this week. I felt like, obviously you're not going to get them all. You're not going to get them all right. But, Cooper Kupp was a popular one that I got asked about. And, I said start him. So if it wasn't for that horse collar tackle, Cooper Kupp might have a good game. So, it's one of those things where injuries just kind of screw it up. But it is what it is, guys. But we had some great calls. I was telling everybody to start Jameis Winston. I think the only quarterback I was telling people to start over Jameis Winston was Matt Ryan. And whether you started Matt Ryan or Jameis, or actually Mahomes, I had a couple Mahomes Winston questions, and I told you guys to start Mahomes, and I was also right about that. But made some good calls this week. A lot of good plays. A lot of people were very happy with the calls. I got a lot of comments saying that, thanks, man, you helped me win this week. So if you guys get a chance, hit that subscribe button. Hit me up on the Fantasy Life app. On the Fantasy Life app, my handle is at 4th and Inches. Oh, what is that? Oh, sorry, guys. There was a bug over here. But at 4th and Inches, FFPC. And I will talk to you guys soon. Peace out.